Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the inaugural episode of OP Says. The purpose of this series is pretty straightforward. Just going to be teaching you some basic or advanced mechanics on different games, classes, concepts, etc. The first topic of our series here is going to be the, at the time of recording, new MMORPG Wildstar. Now, the class that we're going to be touching on is the Stalker class, my personal favorite. I've had some experience in this at lower and higher levels in the open and closed beta. Obviously, as you can see, I'm at level 3 right now. This is actually Ops Week, which means that they've kind of reset everything, and I had to start a new character on a new server. Alright, so the mechanics that we're going to look at here as far as the Stalker goes are pretty unique to this class in this game, but not unique to MMOs in general. Obviously, the stealth mechanic is going to be your primary use here as a Stalker. It's very similar to stealth mechanics that are used on thieves and rogues and other games. The difference is that the stealth mechanic can actually be reactivated in combat, and that's going to be an important thing for you to remember because a lot of abilities that you're going to acquire throughout the levels have different or enhanced properties based on your stealth. Also, as a DPS Stalker, you're actually going to get a 100% crit chance on any ability that you use while you're stealthed. Obviously, that's going to be a big difference in DPS if you actually use it every time the cooldown is up, which is about 25 seconds. Alright, so the stealth mechanic in this, with all classes, they have their special class skills down here, bound to the R key by default, although obviously you can change that. In the case of the Stalker, it's actually going to be a stance. Now you only have this stance to begin with. You're going to have 3 eventually. One is going to be your tanking stance. It's going to give you evasion and threat generation and reduce your damage a bit. This is your DPS, obviously, as you can read from the tooltip there. It increases the damage that you do. It makes you take a little bit more damage, but it gives you that 100% crit chance when you come out of stealth, or when you attack, use an ability while you're in stealth, rather. And the third is kind of a utility spec. I haven't found a whole lot of use for it. I guess it's supposed to be for when you're soloing. It gives you some life steal and a little bit more durability. But I found that if I build for either DPS or tank, it's better to use the straight DPS or tank builds because they both have their strengths when it comes to soloing. This segment is going to talk about stats. Now, as you may have noticed, in Wildstar, different stats do different things for different classes. And indeed, for the Stalker, you're going to have 2 sets of stats depending on your role. The first role that we're going to focus on is going to be the DPS role. For this, your primary stat is going to be brutality. Now, things may change. Once Live comes out, there's some theory crafting that comes. You may find that there's a balance or a hard cap where you get to a certain level of brutality, and you want to move on to your next stat, either finesse or moxie. But for right now, especially while leveling up or doing the early dungeons, brutality is your friend. That's going to give you straight damage. It's going to increase the damage of all the abilities that you do, so that is helpful no matter what happens. Secondary stat for right now is going to be finesse. That gives you something called strike-through rating, which gives you a chance to bypass the defenses of your enemy, and also increases how big your crits are. Obviously, you're going to get a free crit, as we mentioned earlier, every time that you hit something while you're in stealth. So that's going to be something that scales well with you no matter what happens. The third stat is Moxie. That increases the chance that you're going to crit when you're not hitting something out of stealth, and it also makes your crits bigger. So those 2 abilities can be interchangeable, but I find that finesse is a much more stable thing to build towards, with brutality being your primary stat. It may very well be that if you're in a situation such as PvP, you're doing a lot of war plots and you want to take things down very quickly, then Moxie might bypass finesse. I doubt it'll bypass brutality, but it's possible if you get the right gear and the right amps going. As a tank, your three stats, and it's hard to say which one of them is going to be more important, it's going to be Tech, Insight, and Grit. Tech is going to increase the damage and your support power, which means it's going to change how big your abilities are that you use as a tank. For instance, we have a Lifesteal Aura. It's going to increase how much damage that does and how much it heals you for. It's going to increase the damage of pretty much all of the abilities that you use it as a tank, which means that it's going to increase the threat that you're generating. Now, I did build pretty tech heavy, but I never had any threat issues as a stalker with the early dungeons or adventures. So take that with a grain of salt. Take as much tech as you need, I guess I would say, when you're leveling up, and then focus on survivability for the other things. Insight is going to give you your deflect chance, both for crits and for just regular deflect, which means you avoid the damage that you would normally take from it. It decreases the chance that you're going to get crit and decreases the chance that you're going to get hit in general. I have a feeling there's going to be a hard cap that you're going to want to meet when you get to end level for this. 100% critical deflect chance is probably going to be what we're going to want to go for, or as close to it as we can. But for right now, I'm not going to give you any hard numbers because it isn't release and numbers will change. Grit is straight health. Obviously, that's going to be important for any tank. For us, maybe less so than warriors, but once again, things are going to change. So I'll just say for right now, balance all three of them as closely as you can. Try to get all three of these stats on your gear. You're not going to worry about brutality, finesse, or moxie on your tank gear. You want to focus on tech for your damage and the other two for survivability. Amps are the other thing that you're going to focus on here, and obviously they give you the same stats as we just talked about, so pretty much the same rules apply. You're going to go for your assault power, your critical hit severity, critical hit chance. The other stats, as far as leveling up, you're probably not going to worry about too much, although this is going to be a flavor thing for a lot of people. As a tank, you might want to go ahead and throw 3 points into lifesteal after you've got your deflect points in there, so that you can have a little bit more survivability. You'll still be a little bit of a spiky damage taker as a tank, but you'll be able to heal yourself up for a small percentage of that, which might help mitigate things. Although obviously just not getting hit by things is going to be your primary goal. Another concept that we're going to want to touch on here is your basic rotation as a stalker. This is going to change greatly depending on your build, what abilities you've taken, how you want to play your character. However, the basic principle is going to remain the same. Your primary resource as a stalker is your suit power. Notice this little bar down here. Now, this may be in a different place depending on what add-ons you have or how you've changed your UI, but the principle is going to remain the same. You're going to have suit power, and as you use abilities that use suit power, you are going to run out of suit power. There's going to be your primary damage abilities, which do require suit power, and then there's going to be your filler abilities, which do not, and also some CC abilities like Stagger here. It does a little bit of damage, but the primary focus of that is the utility of stunning the enemies that are within its area for 5 seconds. And destroying the interrupt armor, of course. So, the basic way that this works, as you've probably guessed, is that you are going to use the abilities that use suit power as much as possible. Whatever damage ability that you happen to be using as your primary ability. Impale is most likely going to be your kind of throughput ability here. You're going to use that until you don't have enough suit power anymore, and then you're going to spam Shred until your suit power is back up high enough to use Impale again. The caveat here is that this all ties in with your stealth. So, if you notice that you only have 36 suit power, but your stealth is going to be up in just a couple of seconds, rather than use Impale immediately, you're going to be better off hitting Shred a couple of times. It's still going to do a little bit of damage, then hitting your stealth and then hitting Impale so that you get that extra damage that you get from the 100% critical strike plus being in stealth, especially if you can't be behind your target for that fight. So that's more of a mastery thing than something that you have to do as a stalker all the time. However, you'll notice that your performance will increase greatly if you keep the mechanic in mind. Just keep an eye on how much suit power that you have before you go into stealth so that you can use one of your big hitting abilities and do lots and lots of damage rather than just a little piddling amount of damage, or worse, putting off your stealth until you get enough suit power to use another Impale. Alright, so let's get a brief look at what combat looks like as a Stalker. Obviously, this isn't going to be indicative of higher levels. This is only a level 3 character. Things are going to get more advanced as you go on, but for this introductory tutorial, it should give you a pretty good idea of what the flavor looks like. Whenever possible, you want to pull from stealth. There's a couple of reasons for this. You get your 100% crit, which means that you're going to one-shot a lot of mobs or take their health down dramatically. Another reason for this is that you instantly get a reset on your stealth after you come out of combat for the first time, or enter combat for the first time with an ability from stealth. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. You can see the stealth button down here. It's off of cooldown, obviously, because I'm not in combat. Once I attack this mob, and I'm going to use a low damage ability so we can kind of keep this fight going here. Once I attack him, you see how I can immediately go back into stealth? Wait till he hits me. Oh, go into stealth. There's my free crit. And then you'll notice you have that 23-second cooldown on stealth after that, and you have to wait for 23 seconds to go back into stealth again. That's basically going to be the crux, I think, of showing the difference between a good Stalker and a bad Stalker is how often they go into stealth and how well they're able to gauge when they're going to be taking damage in a fight so that they stay in stealth until they get the ability that they want off. So once again, I'm in stealth, I hit the mob, I wait until he hits me, go into stealth, hit him again. I get my other free crit. If you go into stealth just as the mob's about to hit you or is hitting you, it knocks you out of stealth before you get your free crit. Obviously not a good thing. If you go into stealth right when you have to dodge out of an area attack, the telegraphs that are on the ground, you're not going to be able to get that hit off, and you've just wasted your stealth. So the basic gist of the matter is pay attention. Keep an idea of what the fight's like, what the mob's going to do after you hit it. Wait till he hits you, go into stealth, hit him again. Obviously, I just two-shot that guy, no problem. It makes fighting a little bit more challenging, but definitely smooth. The only other mechanic that you want to pay attention to as a melee class in this game, you're going to be circle strafing a lot. You may have noticed that I was doing that to begin with. I hit the mob, and then I just kind of keep moving, because his telegraph's going to be in front of him most of the time. Plus, I have positional abilities, including Impale here, that actually does more damage when I'm behind my target. So if I can hit him while he's in the animation facing away from me, it's going to increase the damage that I do to him, which is going to improve my performance. It's going to be less of an issue when you're in a group and a tank is holding mobs facing away from you anyway, but you're going to be killing a lot of things by yourself, so it's good to get in the habit of just kind of strafing around while you're fighting. Not as a tank. Obviously, as a tank, you're going to want to keep things facing in the same direction as much as possible, because you don't want it to be telegraphing into the group, and you want the group to be able to tell where the telegraph is going to be on the ground. I'll probably have a more advanced tutorial on tanking later on after the game releases so that I can demonstrate in some dungeons and adventures, but for right now, just keep in mind, rule of thumb, as a tank, you want the mob to keep facing in the same direction. As a DPS, you want the mob to face whatever direction they want to while you're moving around behind them. Alright, that concludes my introductory Stalker tutorial here. I hope it was helpful to you. Just gave you a brief rundown and demonstration of the abilities. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, throw some comments down, let me know what you liked and what you didn't like, and I will see you next time.